But
Interesting.
anyway,
Like, okay, whatever.
so one of the things I definitely want to touch on here, because I think it's a good thing to start off with. Kathy Kennedy they're all doing interviews. Kathy Kennedy, in an interview, says, we learned a lot from Solo. That she said something, you know what? I want to find the full quote, but she basically said, we're not going to recast legacy characters. And that Solo was a lesson for that. And I'm real curious. Well, I'm going to look for that quote, but what did you think when you first saw all that? Because I know I texted it to you.
It made me laugh because that's a weird lesson to have. Because one, it's not like you're really recasting legacy characters very often in the first place. Like Solo was really the only one, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So why, what lesson with the only time that you've done that could you possibly get out of it? But two, she's referring to the fact that Solo was like one of the lower grossing Star Wars movies ever, and I don't think it was because of casting. If anything, the castings were very good. Like, I mean, Childish Gambino as Lando was great, of course, but Alden did what he could with Solo. I felt like I enjoyed him in the role. It's a really hard role to recapture because it's kind of one of those roles where only one person could have ever done it, and Alden did the best he could. So yeah, it just was weird to me that that was the takeaway because that wasn't the issue. At least I definitely didn't think it was the issue.
Yeah. So I found a bunch of quotes by her. So I'm just going to kind of go through a few of them. So she said that Solo was one of the first ideas they came up with when the company was sold. And at the time, she genuinely believed it was a good idea. All this comes from the Hollywood Reporter. Love the Hollywood Reporter.
Mm,
She said, originally, some people have talked about how well maybe Solo could have been as a TV show, but even doing Solo as a TV show without Harrison Ford as Han Solo, it's the same thinking and issues. Maybe I should have recognized this before. We would never make Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. And having to finish the fifth movie, I can tell you there wasn't a day I wasn't on set where I wasn't like, yes, this is Indiana Jones. Um, Let's see. Kennedy went on to say the studio has now taken this approach with all of its classic Star Wars characters. She said, we also can't do something with Luke Skywalker that isn't Mark Hamill. She noted in another point in the interview, we're going to suddenly go try to do that. Just staying within the construction of George's storytelling to keep chipping away at that, I think it would be wrong. It's our job to step away now, but still have the connection to the mythology that George created. That won't stop. But we are moving on from the Skywalker saga. That's what's taking a lot of time, discussion, and thought right now. How they move away from the Skywalker saga is what they're focused on. Um,
which I think
but
that makes sense. And I think
I
most Star Wars
completely
fans agree with
agree.
that too. Yeah, I think most Star
Well,
Wars fans are in that boat.
when you make a movie like Rise of Skywalker, I just it's so bad. Oh my gosh. Um really though, so for me, like it makes sense to move off of Skywalker. I really like Kathleen Kennedy. It's funny because we're doing the white guy thing, we're making a podcast, we're talking about nerd stuff. I complain about so many influencers that I see in the movie sphere and in the nerd world talking about Star Wars and Marvel especially, who talk about all these things, and they either get their facts wrong or they follow clickbait headlines and things like that. Like I see creators be like, Kathy Kennedy is one of the greatest producers of all time, but then they don't name any movies she's done. She is one of the best producers ever. She has made some of the biggest movies ever: Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, Jaws. I mean, like literally Indiana Jones, Star Wars, the prequels. Like she is responsible for helping and getting a lot of those made. And we're with this legacy thing. Look, Alden and Lando and Donald Glover were awesome. I mean, they're giving Lando his own spin-off show. So clearly the recasting isn't an issue. You know
Is
what I
that
mean?
still
Like it's not an
happening?
issue. It wasn't mentioned in this thing, but I
Yeah,
remember reading a while ago that it was still happening when he was done making the Mr. and Mrs. Smith show.
I mm,
Let's look
I'll
it
believe
up.
when I see it.
This is
I'll
why we're
believe
on a
when I see it.
podcast now.
Yeah, because I just don't. I don't know. I think just between what Kennedy said about not recasting those legacy characters, and just with some interviews I've been seeing with Donald Glover, it doesn't really seem like he wants to. It seems like he wants to do his own thing, like his own thing artistically, and not do something like a solo. I mean, I don't know.
So
Maybe money talks, obviously, but
so this was Donald Glover was asked on March 30th of this year, so just a couple months ago,
okay.
on Jimmy Kimmel. This comes from StarWarsNews.net, and they are awesome. Everything they put out on Star Wars is always credible. They are the best Star Wars site you can find.
Oh, okay.
He laughed and said, "Am I? No, yeah, you know." And he said, "I have a lot of things. I like to blossom and then go away, and right now it's definitely the start of one of those. I have like a ton of stuff I've been working on, but I just wanted it all to come out at the same time. I feel like that's what's important to me." So he didn't say no, but it sounds like it's on the back burner. And that might be a him thing. It might be a Kathy thing. Um, but I think you can go either way with that. I mean, Kathy also said that the Ryan Johnson trilogy is still technically greenlit and happening, but he is going to focus on his Netflix show first, and then they will come together and, you know, meet about
Hmm.
him later, is what she's saying. So, look, they're not the problem with Solo. They weren't the problem with Solo. Solo was
No.
just an okay written movie. I mean, it's fine. It's a good movie. I have fun with it. I think it's fun. I think Alden's fun. I think some of the stuff Ron Howard did was really good. Um, but it's uh they're not the problem. It's the story, it's the writing, it's not his portrayal. Even Harrison Ford, I retweeted a clip, go check out my Twitter. I retweeted a clip of Harrison Ford kind of jokingly interrupting an interview with Alden for press for the movie, and Harrison said he was blown away by how great he thought Alden was doing and how much he loved how he was taking over the character. And everybody jumped on Mark Hamill's side in interviews before they saw The Last Jedi when Mark was like, "I didn't really like the way my character was taken." And everybody was like, "See, you have to listen to actors. You have to listen to actors." And now it's like, no, you have to listen to script writers. They know, like, it just makes no sense. I'm just rambling now. Thoughts? Bring some context to this podcast, Kyle.
All right. Then let's think about the context of Star Wars at around that time. Wasn't Solo coming out after The Last Jedi, which was what, in
Yes.
December? And Solo
Yes.
came out in May.
Yes.
So Star
Mistakes.
Wars was in a fickle situation, we'll call it,
Yeah, it was
after
not
The
in a
Last
good light.
Jedi. After The Last Jedi happened. So 5 months later, when it's still a fickle situation, and this Solo movie
Yeah.
comes out where people are like, "You recasted Han
Let's
Solo?
let's not
Why do we need
forget.
to know about Han Solo?"
Let's not forget though, Kyle.
Okay.
Five months from um The Last Jedi, and it was like 3 weeks after Endgame. Or it was Infinity War. It was one
Yes,
of those
yes, it
two.
was.
It was
Yes,
right.
that's
It
right.
was
Let me double
right
check that.
after a massive Marvel property, because Bob Iger even said we wanted to see if Star Wars, and Bob Iger was the CEO of all Marvel, and the stockholders wanted to, or Marvel of all Disney, and he said the stockholders, we wanted to try this, test this out to see if we could move Star Wars to summer, and we shouldn't have. And I truly believe they should not have. I think if they would have probably almost doubled their money and made closer to $800 million to $1 billion if they had just released it over Christmas a year later. But but episode 9 didn't even come out a year later, didn't it? Didn't it come out 2 Christmases later? He's on the
I
move.
believe,
He's typing. Can Al
yeah,
find it before him?
Rise of Skywalker came out Christmas of 2019. Solo came out summer of 2018. I believe that was May. And then Avengers Endgame was in 2019, and then Infinity War was in 2018.
So when was
Geez,
Solo,
that was
you
a while
said?
ago. Solo was in May of 2018.
And then when was Infinity War or Endgame?
Well, Infinity War was a month before that in 2018, and then Endgame was in 2019, a year later.
Okay, so then when was Rise of Skywalker? Did you
Christmas of
say?
2019.
So we went Solo, we went A Christmas with no Star Wars, and then we got A Christmas with Star Wars. That's your
Yep.
mistake. That's your mistake. The best thing Kathy Kennedy's ever done is control when Star Wars comes out and put it on Christmas. Make Christmas and Star Wars synonymous with each other, and you were going to make more money. I mean, maybe I'm just being crazy here. Do you think the movie alone, Solo's a fun movie. It's fine. It's not that horrible. It's not that great. There's bad things. There's fun things. There's okay things. Goofy villain. But do you think that if the same movie comes out just Christmas 2018, they make more money? Do you agree to that statement? Do you think that would help?
Yes, but not by a wide margin. Because I still think there would have been angry conversations about Star Wars in general. It took a long time for everyone
Probably.
to calm down about Star Wars, to my memory anyway. And I think it also would have given Ron Howard more time to be making the movie because it was like the
Mhm.
middle of production,
They pushed
which
it
is probably
hard.
like a year before Solo came out, if my memory serves me correct.
Yeah.
That Chris
No, you're right.
or Lord and Miller, who made like the Cloudy with the Chance of Meatball, 21 Jump Street movies,
We're
they
supposed to do
were
it.
supposed to make this movie, and then they got pulled because Kathleen Kennedy, and it's kind of is a pattern of hers when it comes to Star Wars. They weren't making the movie that she thought that they agreed on, but she probably did agree on it because she greenlit it to begin with. And then she immediately went to the safe choice, which is Ron Howard, and he's still a good director, but even still,
Great
every good
director.
director is going to have a hard yeah, you're right, he is a great director, but he is even he would have a difficult time making the best movie possible under the circumstances, is with the deadline and with the changing of the tides with
Dude,
creative changes.
I'm
So
looking at
it
I'm
still
looking
would
at
have.
December, I'm gonna interrupt you, I'm sorry. I'm looking at
Oh, that's
December
fine.
2018. It would have gone up against Aquaman and Bumblebee if it came out on the
Oh
21st.
wait,
There was
yeah.
a week where nothing came out except that, and I guess Mary Poppins Return came out that weekend as well. And then Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse came out 2 weeks before those, but there was a week that nothing came out. I'm telling you, Aquaman wasn't received well. Bumblebee was, but didn't. Not enough people went and saw it. If you stick Solo in there, people go and they're like, "Oh, would I rather see Aquaman or would I rather see this Han Solo adventure over Christmas?" Dad's taking all the kids. It would have made more money. I know it would have made more money. I bet you it would have made double. And maybe I'm
Aquaman.
just
It's weird
Aquaman
though.
was bad.
Aquaman. I mean, it wasn't received well, but it made $1 billion anyway. Like it still
I
did.
guess it
But
did. But
one of those
that's
movies would have
what
been
people
pushed
do at
back.
Christmas though. That's what people does do at Christmas though. They want to go to the movies, they go out with family, it's the time to spend. You don't want to do that, especially right after seeing something else. Ugh.
Not all of those movies would have stayed if Solo was in there. Like Bumblebee would have probably moved. Honestly, Spider Verse might have could have moved away from that release date, and the box office definitely would have looked much different for
So
all of those
this,
movies.
I'm looking up something just because I'm curious. Hollywood Reporter is stating, this was a while ago. This came from 2018. Says that Solo lost $50 million. That's how much that it lost to Disney in terms of money loss.
Okay.
I guess this might have been. It might potentially come in at 80 million. So this might have been too soon. Here, this came out a year later. Let's see. This is Deadline. This might be a little more accurate since the numbers were fully in. Wrinkle in Time, Robin Hood, Star Wars story. It lost $76.9 million. $76.9 million. Look, I'm telling you right now, Kevin Feige walked over and said, I'll write you a personal check for 80 million. Like, so, move on. Let me produce a Star Wars movie. Yeah, I think so. The legacy thing's not an issue. And some people on Twitter I've seen have been like, "Look, I would take a fun young new casting to breathe life into these characters over a CGI mess any day of the week." And they were talking about Luke in Mando at the end of season 2, where I remember thinking like, I don't know if I love the CGI. I mean, it looks great, but it's noticeable. A lot of people are like, "No, it just looks great." But I think since then, a year later for um,
Boba.
For Boba Fett, you're right, I was confused. For Boba Fett, it got so much better, the technology, and it did look really good. But I mean, I'm happy for Mark Hamill that he gets to continue playing these characters, but I think this idea of breathing life into new characters is smart. I mean, eventually, does Star Wars not become James Bond? Is it not, let's go on different adventures where different actors take up the mantle of Luke Skywalker and take you on a new adventure? Does that not happen at some point in our history, do you think?
Oh, I mean, I see. Well, I mean, that was close to.
He was confused.
I was confused. I don't know. I mean, I don't want it to, but I think it was almost close to happening. Although I don't know. What I think I would kind of rather have a real actor play these iconic roles and see a full CGI embodiment for longer than 5 minutes doing it, you know? Like at some
Yeah,
point the uncanny valleyness of it all becomes unsettling. Like it's fine in Mandalorian and Boba Fett to do it for the bits, you know,
but
to
when
do it
it's
for the
for
5 minutes. But
yeah,
for an
but
entire show, an entire movie, I don't want us to get in that territory. And I'm honestly more afraid of that than I am of a recasting of iconic character. Not that I think they should recast. I do think that they should move on and do other characters, other stories. It's okay for Star Wars to not be about Skywalkers, but
I
I
agree.
would rather they do that than go full uncanny valley and kind of be an unsettling situation after a while.
I agree with you. I look, if they cast Sebastian Stan at as Luke Skywalker, which is the fan casting everybody wanted. If they do that, let's just say they do that. We know Sebastian Stan's a great actor. I mean, not only from what he's done in the MCU, but I Tanya, just on the Pam and Tommy show. I mean, he's great. Let's say they
Mhm.
cast him and he looks awesome. And let's say the movie is amazing. Let's just say it's amazing. I think if that happens, the narrative
Set the bar
is
real low.
well, I think you have to because we've seen what happens if the movie's meh. If the movie's meh, we get these conversations because Alden did a
Sure.
great job. But if the movie's amazing and it's overwhelmingly loved and praised, and they're like, this is Star Wars at its best, this is incredible, you know,
Mhm.
then I think people go, the movie's awesome. I kind of, the narrative switches to, I don't know if Sebastian did a great job. He's not my Luke Skywalker. And that's the narrative that James Bond has. People say, oh, no, it's not my James Bond. I may like Daniel Craig, but my James Bond was Sean Connery. They say that, but they still like the new movies, and I think that is what would have happened. I would love to see Alden come back as Han Solo. And I think he would be great. He did a great job. I would love to see Lando again with Donald Glover. I think he did an amazing job. I liked all the movies they made. I mean, there's a big petition to make Solo 2 happen. I mean, that's been a thing for a long time
Oh,
since the
it's
movie
still
came
going
out.
on. Oh.
Every now and then it'll trend. I thought you were on movie Twitter. Are we on different movie Twitters? Because I'm just on
I think
Star
we
Wars
are
Twitter.
I think we are on very different Twitters.
I'm just on Star Wars Twitter.
You guys will never see me on Twitter, by the way. Anyway,
Oh my gosh.
you can probably find
Um,
me.
but yeah, I think maybe Kathy misspoke. I think the idea of not doing Skywalkers is a good idea. We need to take a break. We needed to take a break for a while. I mean, The Rise of Skywalker was horrible. It is a horrible movie. I I get that kids will love it. I get kids love it like the prequels will be loved today.